morning, Mr. Pretorius. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chair. Before Advocate Ramatlhodi testifies, two matters, Chair. The first is that present today here are Advocate Kennedy Tsatswane for Mr. Brian Molefe and Mr. Leslie Mkabela for Ben Ngubane. I just wanted to place that on record. Secondly, Chair, there will be an application for condonation for late issue of Rule 33 notices, but that can only be brought tomorrow, given the time period for responses. It is not expected that it will be opposed.
Okay.
And then thirdly, the evidence of Advocate Ramatlhodi will be led by Ms. Buthelezi.
Okay. Well, before you go, Mr. Pretorius, aren't we going to have another witness after Mr. Ramatlhodi?
Yes, there will be.
And why do I not have that statement for that witness up to now?
I will inquire and inform you presently. Where's the statement? I think you must give the explanation. DCJ, I don't want to relay the explanation and then lose the import, but can that be explained to you after Ramatlhodi, or do you wish an explanation now?
Well, we can deal with it, but I just want to say, last evening I was looking for the statements of the witnesses who will be giving evidence today so I could go through them. I had received Mr. Ramatlhodi's one some time back and I'd read it. I still have that one, but I didn't have any statement for the other witness,
Advocate Muofhe.
I've never received that statement. Obviously, it's just unacceptable that I should not have that statement by yesterday at the latest and without any explanation. And a few days ago, we had a situation where some file that should have been finished to me earlier was only finished on the day when we're going to use it. It has happened before. It's not acceptable.
Yes. I understand, and apologies on behalf of the legal team, Chair. I will investigate the matter and report back to you. It is the responsibility of the evidence leader to ensure that these matters are dealt with, and I'll find out what happened.
Yes, no, that's fine. The only thing, of course, is that if the particular evidence leader doesn't do what they are supposed to do, the head of the team must make sure that they do what they're supposed to do.
Yes, no, I take full responsibility and accountability, and I trust that is noted.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Chair,
may we give an explanation now?
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning. Chairman, I have been working with Advocates Buthelezi and Advocate Molefe in preparing the bundles and preparing to lead the evidence of Advocate Ramatlhodi and Advocate Muofhe. So I take full responsibility for the fact that you do not have a complete set of papers before you, Chairman. I do apologize for that. We have, just to deal with the evidence that will be led this morning, that of Advocate Ramatlhodi, that bundle has not changed at all, save that. And I know this is what has upset you, Chairman. There are some annexures that have been added to it, some documents that have been added to it. So we will be asking for your leave, Chairman, they're just supporting documents, Chairman, that will probably be more relevant as you read the papers later on. We will be asking if you would permit us to add those documents.
No, that's fine. Just adding documents to that are annexures to a statement that I already have is fine. What is not fine is that I should not have, in good time, a statement for a witness that's going to be giving evidence. I know that sometimes the legal team receives these late, but they don't receive them a day or two before the hearing, as far as I understand. And normally it should be possible that I should have these statements at least, or at the latest, a week before the hearing. But if there is any delay, it certainly should not be a situation where I get it on the day of the hearing of that witness's evidence.
We do apologize for that, Chairman, and we will remedy that. The bundle that is before you is half of the file that is labeled Exhibit Q1, because what we elected to do as a team, Chairman, was to combine the bundles of Advocate Ramatlhodi and Advocate Muofhe. We thought, because they're fairly slim bundles, Chairman, we thought it might be easier for you to handle them in one file.
Okay.
And that's all that Exhibit Q1 represents. Save that, and I will repeat, Chairman, from page 27 to page 31, which is not in your bundle, Chairman. Those are documents that relate to Advocate Ramatlhodi.
Now, this one that I've had for some time, which has Mr. Ramatlhodi's statement and some annexures, obviously without the additional annexures that you are talking about, would it be possible to just add, in other words, to use the same, just add what is not here?
Indeed.
Because I have pages where I have made some notes for myself here, which I would like to keep.
Indeed so, Chairman. In fact, what we can do is, if your file, Chairman, only goes up to page 26, all that we will do is extract from Exhibit Q1, page 27, all the way to page 56, because that's the missing part of the bundle that you do not have,
mine goes up to
Chairman.
page 26, so we can just add the additional annexures, and then, I think, should we not do that right now?
We can do that immediately,
Yeah.
Chairman, and
The
we'll also
registrar just get that.
we will also furnish a file divider so that Muofhe's statement is clearly separate
Okay.
from the matters you're dealing with this morning.
Okay.
Thank you for the indulgence, Chairman. Good morning.
Morning, Chair.
Morning.
Good morning, Chair.
Well, I've said morning twice already.
Chair, I'll be leading the evidence of Advocate Ramatlhodi. May I ask that the witness be sworn in?
Okay, all right, thank you. You might have to raise your voice, Ms. Buthelezi.
I'll do so, Chair.
Thank you.
Please state your full names for the record.
Ngoako Ramatlhodi.
Do you have any objection with taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Correct.
Do you swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Ramatlhodi.
Morning, Chairperson.
Thank you very much for coming forward to assist the Commission. You will know, and everybody knows in the country by now, I think, that I've been urging past and present ministers and directors general to come forward and assist the Commission with whatever they might know that falls under the terms of reference. So I appreciate the fact that you have come forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. This is a bit far.
Yes, Ms. Buthelezi, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Advocate Ramatlhodi. Your evidence today, we will be focusing on the term of reference 1.1 up to term of reference 1.3. I will emphasize term of reference 1.1 and 1.3, and I'll read the same to you. Your evidence will be focusing on the Commission's inquiry on whether and to what extent and by whom attempts were made through any form of inducement or for any gain of whatsoever nature to influence the members of the National Executive, including the deputy ministers, office bearers, and or functionaries employed by the office bearers of any state institution or organ of state. This also include the directors of the boards of SOEs. I'll then move to 1.3, whether the appointment of any member of the National Executive, functionary, or any office bearer was disclosed to the Gupta family or any other unauthorized person before such appointment were formally made or announced. And if so, whether the president or any member of the National Executive is responsible for such conduct. That will be the focus of your evidence today, Advocate Ramatlhodi.
Ms. Buthelezi, I don't know whether what you read there in terms of the terms of reference doesn't include dismissals and appointments of members of the executive. I don't remember hearing that part, you reading that part. Am I correct? You didn't read that part? Well, if you didn't read it,
I didn't read it.
You didn't read it.
Yes, but
why does his evidence not fall under that as well?
It should.
Yeah, you see, it's important if you are going to slot the evidence of a witness under a particular term of reference. It's important that you do so only if you are sure that that's all it falls under. Because otherwise, if you slot it under a particular term of reference and later on it transpires that actually it could fall or should fall under another one, there may be a problem. So otherwise, better if you don't slot it unless you are sure.
I understand.
Okay. All right.
Advocate Ramatlhodi, your evidence should also cover the events that may have led to your appointment and dismissal as a member of the cabinet.
That remains the position, irrespective of the fact that the witness might not himself see it is evident as falling under a particular term of reference. I know, having read Mr. Ramatlhodi's statement, that he might not be able to say, I was removed from a particular position because of this and that and that. But the fact that he might not himself be able to say that doesn't preclude the Commission, if there is enough evidence, from making that conclusion.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Ramatlhodi, before you there is a file or a bundle of document Q1. If you look at pages from page 1 up to 26 of that document, that is the statement that you made for the commission, and on page 6 of the same, page 5 of the same bundle, there is a signature that appears at the bottom of that page. Do you confirm that that is your signature?
Yes, I confirm.
And do you confirm that the document that I've referred to, it's the statement that you made for the
Correct. I
commission
confirm.
together with its annexures?
I confirm.
Thank you.
And you confirm that the contents of the statement are true and correct.
They are indeed true and correct, Chair.
Thank you.
Advocate Ramatlhodi, I would like you to give us your background relative to yourself being the member of the ANC, as well as the position that you have held within our government from 1994 to date.
Well, I joined the NC in 1977 in Botswana, Gaborone. My commander was Dr. Wallace Rute. My first political commissar is our current ambassador to the United Nations, Mr. Machila. My security detail, former commissioner, Tim Williams. Then I was introduced back to the country to begin to lead the students' movement in South Africa. I was part of those who formed COSAS and AZASO in 1979. I have recruited and trained many people, like Ephraim Mghali, Peter Makaba, Collins Chabane, Derek Hanekom, the current minister, and his wife. I trained them in Zimbabwe. I left the country in 1980 under a lot of pressure, and then I joined the exiled in Lesotho. That's where I schooled, and I was made head of the political department in Lesotho under Chris Hani, who was my commander at the time. In that capacity, I trained people like Honorable Nyami Boy in Lesotho and many others. So basically, that is my history. I trained in Angola and in the Soviet Union then for commander's course. Then I was then sent to Zimbabwe to head the political military council of the NC. And when Ndata Makhathini demised, Comrade Thabo Mbeki, who was in the office of the president, then was given the portfolio of foreign affairs. So I was transferred from Harare and taken to the president's office in Lusaka. So I worked for President Oliver Tambo as a speechwriter and also as a personal secretary. I belonged in that capacity to a small group of us. It was Jack Simons, it was President Tambo, it was Mabitse Edwin, and it was myself who were constituting a core in the office of the president in terms of analyzing events which were unfolding in our country. We are supported in that regard by Dr. Freni Jinala, who was in London, because she had access to the media, so she could send us newspaper cuttings so that we can have a look at what is happening in South Africa at the time. I was then Secretary of the Control Commission of the NC, which was composed of Secretary General, of Joe Slobo, of Dan Tlome, of President Tambo, and others. That body was responsible for prosecuting the struggle both inside South Africa and outside South Africa. I think in brief, that's what I want to give us. So I've been a member of the National Executive from 1991 up to date. I'm still one today as I speak. Upon our return, I then got elected the head of the NC in the Northern Transvaal then. I went to teach at the University of the North after that. And then one of my students is here that came in to listen to my testimony. He just reminded me.
So you have kept ties for a long time.
So then I became Premier of Limpopo, then Northern Transvaal, 1994. I served 2 terms, I did 10 years, 94 to 2004. And then I became, in 2009, I became head of the NC elections. And I went to Parliament, became head of the Constitutional Development Committee, where I met the chairperson himself. I was serving in the jail Service Commission,
yes.
Judicial Service Commission. Now, I was then appointed Deputy Minister of Correctional Services. That was in 2010, yes. And we came back from the elections in 2014, and my wish was not to go back to government. And I communicated that to the officials of the NC, because I had other business interests which were being compromised by me being in government. Anyway, they insisted that I should go back to government, and I went to government as Minister of Mineral Resources, of Minerals. When ministers are appointed, normally the exercise begins in the afternoon after the president has taken an oath. So many of us spend sleepless nights with telephones waiting to be called. If by morning you have not been called,
sometimes waiting and the call doesn't come.
It doesn't come. And if it doesn't come, you know, would you like to China in the language which we use in Angola? When will they take you to the front? You have just lost the opportunity. Anyway, I did receive my call. It was around midnight, 2014, and I happened to be staying the same yard as Matlambandlovu there. There are ministerial residences there. So I then arrived there, found the president. When my time came, he was sitting with the Secretary General of the NC, and I had left other candidates on the other side, outside. And when you get into that chamber, into the room with the president, you are informed of what you are going to be and so on, and you then leave. You don't go back to the other guys. That's the procedure, the protocol.
Sorry, I was saying in paragraph 1.4, you tell us about.
Sorry?
You served, as you said, in 2014, you were appointed as the Minister of
Minerals.
Minerals.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but I just want him to finish that part. I think you are about to finish that part.
Yeah, no. What happens is you are not supposed to go and tell others what you have just seen in there. You leave through another door and you go home. And possibly worried. But what worried me at the time, there was a strike which had been going on for about 6 months in the minerals, in the platinum belt. It's only when I reached home that I realized that they put me against a strike. Anyway, we did manage to stop the strike within a month of my appointment, which I thought was great for the country and so on. Then I began to receive phone calls, congratulatory messages from well-wishers and everybody, and I was obliging everybody.
Yes.
Amongst these people, I got a call from the president's son, Duduzane Zuma, who wished to see me and convey his congratulations in person.
Yes.
At the time, I was very busy. I had just gone into a very difficult ministry at the time, so I didn't have time to entertain personal engagements with people. So I kept on pushing back.
Minister, if, Advocate Ramatlhodi, if I may ask, how long have you known Tutuzani Zuma?
Well, I know Tutuzani as a young star from exile.
Yes.
But we became much, much closer when we arrived here at home. What happened is the former president was being charged with corruption in Pietermaritzburg. Now, and I was then put in a team which was led by the then Secretary General Kgalema Motlanthe to support the then Deputy President in his trials. So we spent...
And that would have been around 2005, 2006.
Yeah, 6 years, yes. So each time the president would appear in court, we would be there with Tutuzani and the sister.
Yes.
So we got quite close in that sense. I was also put in a team that supported the president, which was established by the National Executive, which was led by Lindy Wesisulu. And in that team, there was Judge Heath, there was Professor Sipho Seepe, there was Ngoako Ramatlhodi, there was Tony Yengeni, there was Collins Chabane.
But you say there was Judge Heath?
This team was meant to manage the issues of the trials of the deputy president then.
But what was the judge doing there in that team?
Who? Heath.
I thought you said there was Judge Heath.
He was there. He was there. We took.
Or is that, that is after he was no longer in active service?
Yes, correct.
Ah.
So
It still sounds strange.
Yeah. So we put a multifaceted team, which was both offensive and defensive, in terms of communication, in terms of managing the public perspective, in terms of the legal inputs from people like Judge Heath. Or there was also, I forgot his name now, he's in Cape Town, but he was the other legal mind. We took in Professor Sipho Seepe on the basis of the political inputs that he used to make whilst he was still professor in Venda at the university. So we had a team like that, which then had to interrogate each and every phase of the appearance in court and to come out with the strategies, how to get him off the hook. And I believe we did very well in that regard. We got him out, Deputy President Zuma.
Yes.
Now,
well, I just said, Mr. Ramatlhodi, I just said it still sounds strange that a judge was involved in that, but on reflection, I think Judge Heath may have left. I think he definitely had left the bench, and he may have, at that stage, assumed the position of being an advocate, but people knew him as Judge Heath, so that is how they would refer to him. So I suspect that is what...
I think that is correct.
Yeah.
I think that is correct.
Thank you. Yeah.
So...
Thank you, Abdul. If I may interject, how long have you known the former President Zuma?
I met President Zuma when I was head of the RPMC in Harare. That's 1986.
Yes.
That's 1986. He came from Lusaka to come and see me, to look at a few operations and so on. And then I got to know him. He had a big hair like I did as well at the time, and beard. He was bearded. But today you look at him, he looks like me, more or less. So I've known him since then. And each time I go to Lusaka to report to the PMC, I would find him there as head of intelligence of the NC. Because what happened, we had an incident in Angola in 1984 when there was a rebellion in our camps. Now, we had to put that rebellion down with the force of arms. And after that, the NC was a signatory to the Vienna Convention on War. Now, we instituted a commission to evaluate if, in fact, our response to that incident of 1984 was in conformity with the Vienna Convention. And it was led by the late Mr. Stewart. There was Mrs. Shope in that commission and several other senior members. And they found that we had exceeded the limits. In other words, there were elements of summary executions of some of the people. So the then head of intelligence, Mzwai Pilis, had to take political responsibility and resign as head of intelligence of the NC. So we were doing this since, because we are a very principled organization. When we are wrong, we would correct ourselves. And that's how John Tantla and Jacob Zuma became joint heads of intelligence of the NC to replace Mzwai Pilis. And so I would then meet him in that capacity.
Thank you. If I may take you to the paragraph 3 of your statement, you've already told that you got a lot of congratulatory messages, including one from Duduzane Zuma. Then in paragraph 3 of the statement, you mentioned that you got a message that Duduzane wanted to see you. Would you please expand on what was the purpose of this meeting that is referred to in paragraph 3?
Well, he was insisting, I think he's 6 months into office at Minerals or so on. And I realized maybe I should see and give him a hearing.
Yes.
And I met him at St. George's Hotel during one of the NEC meetings. And then he then said to me that it's a pity that we are meeting under the circumstances that I was meeting him. I asked him to elaborate. And then he then said to me, there is a rumor he has heard from 2 sources that have been bad-mouthing him and his business associates, and basically saying they're involved in crime.
Did he tell you who were those sources?
Well, because later on he mentioned Ajay Gupta. So I understood that the business associates to be the Gupta brothers. So I then said to him, to the son, you are as good as my son. I mean, why would I run around bad-mouthing you when you are committing crime? I won't even tell your father. I'll just summon you and ask you, why are you involved in crime? So he then said to me, he's told his father the story, and I then responded by saying, I'm going to tell your father what I said to you. And then he suggested meeting A.J. Gupta for me to explain. I said, I don't know A.J. Gupta, and I owe him nothing. So you can go and tell him that I'm not seeing him, because I've not bad-mouthed anybody.
Yes. And, sorry,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Did you say that was about a month or so after your
No, about
appointment?
6 or so months after.
About 6 months or so?
Yeah, because he had been pushing to see me.
Oh,
It
okay.
was quite a while, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll take it this was around the end of 2014.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
And you mentioned that he told
I'm
you
sorry,
that-
Ms. Buthelezi again. Mr. Ramatlhodi, when I read your statement, I did detect that in some areas where certain events happened, there is no indication of dates, whereas I think it might be important. So we might be asking you to try and remember, not necessarily the exact dates, but maybe around about what time certain things happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. In paragraph 6 of your statement, you say he told you that he had from his sources. My question was, who are those sources?
He mentioned two names, one from India, he's a businessman, and a local fellow that I did not know. So I said to him, he needs to come back to me with the names in writing, which he never did. So that conversation ended there.
Thank you.
Let me check. People at the back, are you able to hear everything properly? Oh, yes, okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And the meeting that he was suggesting that you should have with AJ Gupta, what would have been the purpose of this meeting?
He wanted me to explain to AJ Gupta that I did not badmouth them. That's what he said to me was the purpose of the meeting. My own reflection is that they'd been trying to meet me for a long time and I was refusing. So they had to create a story and hoping that maybe I would then go and meet this fellow called AJ Gupta.
Thank you. On paragraph 12 of your statement, you also mentioned another, I would say, a request that was conveyed to you via Advocate Muofhe. Who is Advocate Muofhe?
At the time, he was my special advisor. And then the Guptas sent word to him asking him to arrange a meeting between me and them. And we both dismissed that request.
And when was this, roughly?
I think Advocate Muofhe can assist us because this one is reported in the newspapers as well. We'll find it in this.
Okay,
It is
thank you.
public knowledge.
Thank you. But in terms of your recollection, when Mr. Tutuzane Zuma asked you if you could meet Ajay Gupta and explain that you had not been bad-mouthing them, was that the first request that was being made for you to meet the Guptas after you took the portfolio of mineral resources?
The direct request came from Tutuzane to me. The other one went to Advocate Muofhe. And there was also an issue about the DJ who was requested to increase the number of the new age newspapers that were in the department, in other words, to buy more.
Yes.
And I advised him that we can't do that. We have no justification
Yes.
to buy more papers than I found there.
Yes, yes.
There was also...
Or maybe I must just clarify. I know you might have more for after your meeting with Tutuzane Zuma. So I'm just looking at the period before that, whether there had been any attempts that had been made either to you or to anyone in the department, including your advisor, or whether this one to the advisor came after your meeting with Tutuzane Zuma. I'm trying to locate in terms of time, because I think you said you met Tutuzane Zuma about 6 months after your appointment.
I estimate that it could be about 6 months. And Muofhe issue would have come possibly before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank
And
you.
you made reference to Annexure A. If you may turn to page 6 of the bundle.
Page what? 6.
Page 6, yes. There's an article there by EWN. I'll read the first 2 paragraphs of that article. The Public Service and Administration Minister Ngoako Ramatlhodi's spokesperson has confirmed that Ramatlhodi was invited to a social engagement by the Gupta family shortly after he was appointed to his previous job as Mineral Resources Minister. but the minister's office says he declined the invitation. This invitation, what does this article relate to? Which invitation? Is it the invitation by Duduzane, or is it the one that was conveyed to you through Advocate Muofhe?
Well, they were pushing from all angles, so I can't ascribe it to one invitation. So they were pushing to get me into a meeting.
Thank you.
And then there was also an attempt to get me to appear on their breakfast shows, the so-called SABC breakfast shows.
Yes.
Yes.
Before you tell us about that one, Mr. Ramatlhodi, I know that it may be a long time and you may not have been keeping records necessarily, but if you are able to place them in terms of their sequence, which one came first, which one came after that, that would be helpful. But if it is not possible, you can just say that I can't remember which one happened first, but this did happen. So,
no.
So it's just an attempt to see, you get appointed as Minister of Mineral Resources in May, I think, 2014, and then you have this request from Jacob Zuma to meet with you. You try and push them back for some time, but ultimately you give him an audience about or around 6 months after appointment. And then you say that the approach to Mr. Muofhe probably came before your meeting with Jacob Zuma. So as you go on, if you just make an effort to try and see where you locate in terms of time or sequence, that will be helpful. Thank you. Ms. Buthelezi. Oh.
I might want to see if we can get some of the diaries from my former PA, if
yes.
got, yeah.
No,
which could assist.
If that can happen, that would be helpful. So do the best you can, and we'll understand that that is subject to trying to find diaries which might be more accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On paragraph 13, you spoke about the request that was made through the DG, Dr. Ramatlhodi, that you increase the order of the order volume of New Age newspapers. When was this made, if you could still remember?
I believe Dr. Ramatlhodi should be able to give us a rough estimate of that, because he's the one who talked to me about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you then spoke about the mining indaba that was in Cape Town.
Well, I'm sorry. You may have said this, Mr. Ramatlhodi, already, but I guess it's important for you to place on record that you did refuse to authorize the increase of the New Age, because that's what is in your statement. And then he can give more details about the issue. You confirm that?
I can confirm, yes. He'll give us more details. I think soon after I came to minerals, that one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And you spoke about the mining indaba that was in Cape Town and what you were told about the Guptas hosting the department in their Cape Town home. Can you elaborate on that?
Before I do that, let me go back a bit to say, I was mentioning the issue of the breakfast shows, which I declined. I've never appeared. There were some ministers who were doing that. I was not interested in it. And maybe you might be interested in understanding why my attitude.
Yes.
Now, my attitude, I didn't know these people. They came into South Africa, and one day I met correctional services. An aeroplane lands at our Waterkloof Air Force Base, carrying wedding and people. That for me was the last insult. I mean, it was a step at the back for those who died, because there are men who died when I was there with them. That you get foreigners, they come in here, and then they land a wedding charter in our Air Force base. So we had a meeting of the security cluster because I was sitting in correctional services. I told my fellow ministers that this is the last insult. We can't have this happen in our country. And from the NC side, we told the president, don't attend that wedding. Don't do it. Because we've just messed up. And not only did they land there, they actually got even the escorts of the security, everything too. That place there.
Yes.
Now, if we have been through war, like I have, there are things you don't tolerate. And that explains my attitude towards the Guptas.
Yes. But you, you just referred to you and the group telling the president, by which obviously
Billy Maseta, myself, and
president.
a few others, we told him, don't go to that wedding.
Yes. You.
And on this occasion, he listened.
He listened.
He didn't attend that wedding.
Yes.
Yeah.
And from what you say, it seems to me your group, whatever the group was that was talking to him, you made it quite clear that what had happened was completely unacceptable.
No, we told him, Mr. President, you don't do things like that. Whether you knew or you didn't know, this one is not acceptable.
Was it your understanding that the landing of those aeroplanes there could not have happened without his knowledge or approval, or not necessarily? I'm just asking that because you are saying you said to him, I think you must tell me if I didn't hear properly. You have messed up. This is not acceptable. This is not done, or something like that.
We said to him, Mr. President, it's unacceptable that a private jet carrying wedding party from another country lands at our Air Force base. We have fought for this base to be under our command. So it's not acceptable. So don't graze this thing by going to the wedding, in addition to what has already happened. Now, our sense at the time, let me speak about me.
Yes.
I had a feeling that it could not happen without his knowledge. And in fact, there was talk like that because the chief of protocol in the presidency, Ambassador, I forgot his name, he was in Holland now because after that he had to be redeployed to Holland.
Yeah.
So apparently that fellow got a call from number one, as they call him those days, and
yes.
And then he authorized the landing. Yeah.
That's important. Thank you.
And where did you hear, or when? Yeah, where did you hear about that from, Minister? If I may ask. How did you learn about what you have just told us, that number one was called?
Well, we have meetings in the NC, we talk amongst ourselves. So I can't say I got it from so-and-so or the other one. But my impression was precisely that he actually authorized it.
Thank you.
And everything else that you have had since then, in terms of that incident that you subsequently had, hasn't changed your sense that he must have known?
You see, Chair, presidents have got friends in the business community and so on. They do see people and so on. But these ones, I felt they were insulting even the president. Because what they were doing was to show off. You know, that they captured the republic is theirs. They are not presidents, but they can land at an Air Force base.
Well, I'm very interested that you give us the picture as you see it of this incident, because it's quite clear from what you have said to us that you really found this whole thing so unacceptable. So it's just important that we get that full picture. So I just invite you to talk more about it, if to give us that sense how repugnant it was to you and why so. I know you have already said some things that if you have been to war and something like this happens, what your reaction would be like.
Chair, what happens at Air Force Base of South Africa is only heads of states land there. And when they land, we receive them with all the protocols. Either one minister or the other is sent to go and do that. But on this occasion, this aeroplane from India just landed there. And there was preparations, because even the traffic cops were escorting those buses which were going to Northwest.
Yeah.
So it was a well-planned reception, which could not happen without higher authority knowing. Well, they mobilized even the municipalities to provide security for those buses to go there. So I think it was quite heavy for us, some of us.
Did you say something like a few minutes ago that it was a show-off, as far as you are concerned, of this family showing that they've actually captured?
They were disrespectful
the
of the
country.
president. They were disrespectful of the president, of the country. They were disrespectful of us. That's the essence. They were totally disrespectful.
Because of what the Air Force Base represents in a country.
And not only any Air Force base, the one which is the headquarters in Pretoria.
Yes.
Not just any Air Force base, that one. Some things are very secret to us, those of us who have gone through the military things. Like a flag.
Yes.
It's sacred. When we hold that flag, it's sacred. So that Air Force is not a place where you can just go and play around.
No, thank you very much. You can keep your mic on. I think it won't disturb anything.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Advocate Ramatlhodi.
Just a minute. And then after I spoke to Dudizana, I went to his father.
Thank you.
We met in Cape Town. I told him, look, your son is saying this and this, that I'm bad-mouthing him, but I can assure you that I told him that if he is misbehaving, I will summon him like his uncle or his father, so to speak. And so, Mr. President, that's what I told your son. Then he said, then left me. Yeah, I'm done with that.
It's all right. What? It's all right, my mate, or it's all right, whatever. Well, I'm sure somebody will give a translation. I see Ms. Leah Kabashe is...
Yes, no, he said it's all right. It's all right, Mfanagit. It's all right.
Well, I guess Ms. Butelezi is the one who should be assisting.
Right.
I will say it's all right, my body. I'm not sure if it's Thank you.
Okay.
Advocate Ramatlhodi, if you may proceed with your statement. It appears that you were also invited, there was an invite that you be hosted by the Guptas in Cape Town during mining in Daba.
No, I was not invited.
Yes.
What happened? We have an annual mining gathering in South Africa, in Cape Town. We've got another one in Australia, we've got another one in Canada. Those are called mine Indabas, the big ones.
Yes.
So I was in China with Dr. Ramonja, my Director General. So he was relating to me how they used to operate under the previous ministers.
This was soon after your appointment, or a few months after your appointment?
Yeah, it was before our local money in Indaba, which would have been around 2015, early in the year, because it happens around February, March,
yes,
something like that. So he told me that during the mining in Indaba, all the DG and DDGs from all my departments, minerals,
Yes.
would then be hosted by the Guptas in their Cape Town home.
In their home?
Yeah, in Cape Town, yes. They would then call other business people to attend there.
In a private home?
Yes, in their home. DDGs of the department.
A government thing?
I think we must inquire, we must ask them. Those who were there, they should be able to confirm if that is true or not. But what I did was to say to the DG, he was not persuading me to do it, but I told him, but this will not happen on my watch. There's no one who's going to the Gupta's home to be hosted by them. Because the way they operate, they were demonstrating power, these people. What they do, they will call this whole department there and then call people who would be investors and say, you see, we have got the department, is here.
Sure.
So we want you to do this and
here.
that and that. So they're demonstrating power.
That you
Call the whole department.
we are in charge.
The whole department. Sure. The whole department, it would go there. Now.
And you said even the minister will be hosted.
The minister would be there. The previous ministers, they can speak for themselves when they appear here.
That's Minister Shabangu, as you understand. Or even the previous one.
Yeah.
So.
Shabangu specifically.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
No, but, well, we will hear evidence from, in due course, Dr. Ramatlhodi, who, from what you say, who obviously had been at some of those. Yeah. And, but the whole idea that a government in Indaba, a government department in Indaba must be held at the private home of some private citizens.
No, Chair. The Indaba itself would be held in Cape Town Hall, whatever, the big thing.
Okay.
But in the evening,
yeah,
they then summon the department to go to the Guptas.
For what?
To show off.
Sure.
To demonstrate their power. To be, because they would intimidate people, these guys, and say to them, look, if you don't cooperate with me, you won't get a license from minerals. If you don't do this, you won't get that. That's what they were doing. They were actually demonstrating their power, to intimidating possible investors, because the investors come from all over the world. When we're talking Indaba, they're coming from across the world, they're coming to look for opportunities in South Africa. So they invite selected people to come and meet the department in their home.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, all kinds of questions that I'm thinking of should not be for you because you have never been in those.
Maybe I should have been there to see what we...
But, I mean, what is it that could not have been dealt with at the venue where Indaba was held? And why should there be another gathering involving everybody, I guess, or most people who were at Indaba? You know,
Chair, the Guptas had the power to summon the president to their home. And they would boast about it. Well, now, they had the power to then summon ministers who were wet behind the ears, who can just run there and so they call you to your home. They don't even try and meet you in a hotel. They want you in their home. So that's their modus operandi.
Well, if you can, please just tell us more about that, because we have had evidence from, among others, Mr. Jonas and Miss Mentor, both of whom told me that they had on obviously different occasions been to the Gupta residence. And I think one of them, Miss Mentor, but it may be that Mr. Jonas too, one of them, or both of them, said, you know, the Gupta brother that I was talking to at the Gupta residence, I think they said it's Ajay Gupta, told me that, or I think Mr. Maseko too in his evidence, in effect that Ajay Gupta said the former president would do whatever they wanted, or something to very much along those lines, that if there were ministers who were not cooperating, they would call them to their residence. So what you are telling me seems to corroborate what I've heard already. So I don't know whether you might have any specific instances or even ministers that you know were called in there. And I must just say that I ask you that question knowing that maybe you might be viewed in a certain way by certain people, maybe if you specify names, but we are investigating something very serious for the country, and we need to get to the truth. So if you do remember, please let us know.
It's public knowledge, Chair, that Minister Van Rooyen and Minister Zwane, before the appointment, they were camping there in Saxonwold.
They were camping there, you say?
Yeah, they were staying there. They would go there. I mean, the public telephones can show. There's public knowledge that they, I can point out those. And they're not even ashamed. They will tell you, we are a Gupta minister, so what?
Is that so?
Yeah.
Sure.
I think when they do appear here, they should explain how many times they went there before they got appointed.
Yes. No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Advocate Ramatlhodi.
Please raise your voice,
Okay. As a deputy minister...
Can I repeat something?
Yes.
Not repeat, just say something.
Yes.
In the National Executive, Chair, we would raise this issue with the President.
Yes.
We would say to you, this relationship of yours with these guys is toxic. Why don't we end it? And we can talk as high and as loud as we like. When we finish, when you close the meeting, he says, those people are my friends because they helped my children when I was a persona non grata. They helped Judizan, they helped Edward, they gave them jobs when no one wanted me. So what are you asking of me? Now, so he was refusing to budge on that one. Yeah.
And you say this would have been at NEC
in the NEC,
meetings.
National Executive, yeah.
Is that
because
so?
Many people were very uncomfortable with that relationship.
Yes.
Because it was humiliating him.
Yes.
And we cared about him.
Yes.
You know? Besides the NC, but he's someone we have known. He's a nice person. You know, when you are with him, you are in a happy ground. But the things he was doing were a bit irrational at the time.
And you think this would have happened a few times where the NEC or groups or some in the NEC would say, Mr. President, please, why don't you end this friendship?
Yeah, indeed. Not
Yeah.
once.
But
I'm
as you
sure
say,
we can get the minutes of the NEC, we'll see some of the things in there. It's just that his style of leadership was such that we debate issues. When we finish, and because we don't vote in the NEC, what we do, we try and reach sufficient consensus, if I
Yeah.
must use that word. But when he summarizes, as the last speaker, he can decide to go in a tangent against the majority view.
oh,
And none of us can come back to him and say, Mr. President, you are misrepresenting us, because he's the last speaker.
yes,
So some of the decisions might not show in the minutes
yes.
if they were not properly recorded. But I suppose we can peruse and see if we find something there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Ramatlhodi. And if I may take you back to your statement, paragraph 15, you talk about a call, another call that you received from.
Sorry, Ms. Buthelezi, I'm sorry to interrupt you again.
Thank you.
I just want to make a proposition, and you might wish to comment on it, or if you don't wish to comment, you might say so. So, from what you say, could it be possible that it was because of, at least among other things, the assistance that the Gupta family appears to have given his son or his children, that he may have felt that he had to keep that friendship, whatever the consequences?
That's my impression, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On paragraph 15, you talk about a call that you received from Duduzane and that he sounded desperate. Can you tell us about that call?
Yeah, in fact, he demanded to see me. He called and said, I must see you today, to Duzane.
I'm sorry,
Paragraph 15.
1-5.
Yes, paragraph 1.5 of the
1.5,
statement.
yeah.
It's on page 3.
Page 3.
Yes, thank you. No, I'm sorry, my mind was still on something else, but I understand, and I'll look
Now
at
we can
this.
wait.
Yeah.
We can wait with 15 and
No.
go back to what you were wanting to engage on, Chair.
No, you see, you have also said that the landing of that aircraft at the air base, Air Force Base, was an act of disrespect by the Gupta family to the president. I'm sure you mean to the whole country as well.
And an insult to us.
Yeah. Now, Ms. Mento, in her evidence with regard to her meeting with one of the Gupta brothers, according to his evidence, he said he found that Mr. Ajay Gupta, whom she says met with her, was disrespectful to the president, because even when the president entered the room and she stood up to show respect, the Ajay Gupta just sat there, and did nothing, and did not stand. But she went further, and if I recall correctly, said something suggesting that the way Ajay Gupta was talking to the former president showed that he was not respectful of the president. So I'm just saying, maybe there might be a connection between lack of respect for the president from them.
Somebody told me, and he's an old comrade of mine, Jabungwen, I can name him, and he says to me, you see, the Guptas have got a secretary in their house which handles the president's diary. In other words, the president has got two secretaries. One belongs to the Guptas, the other is in Matlamandlo or union buildings. Now, so they can easily interfere with his diary if they want him. They insist you come, and then he come running there. Now, so we're asking ourselves, what is this thing, that this hold that they have on him, over him? We couldn't understand the grip. You know, it's like a python, and when a python wraps itself around you, unless somebody takes out the tail from the soil, you are finished. So because it has got a horn at the back there, which gives it a balance. Now, it was just like that. It was like a python which had wrapped itself around him.
Yes, Ms. Buthelezi.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if we still have time.
You don't want to use the next 3 minutes?
I can use the next 3 minutes. Advocate Ramatlhodi, if I may take you back to your statement, paragraph 15, where you spoke about the desperate call that you received from Duduzane Zuma on a Friday. Would you please take us to what transpired there?
Well, he demanded to see me, and I said I'll see him on Monday, because I wanted to understand what the issues would be. Yes. It wasn't a friendly call. It was something which required me to exercise some caution. So I asked the department officials, what could it be that this boy wanted to see me about? And then they showed me pictures of people who were working unprotected in the Gupta-owned mine. I think it must be a uranium mine, if I'm not mistaken. Now, so the department has got the power to suspend the operations of the mine under Section 54 of Minerals Act if the mine is not compliant, and impose conditions for them to comply and then reopen. So he wanted to see me about that. Once I saw that, I arranged to see his father, the president at the time. Yes. I went to see him in Matlamandlo. I said to him, Mr. President, as Minister of Mineral Resources, I'm a court of appeal. No one comes straight to me, such as your son calling me to intervene in these matters. Because these things have to be processed. You should please tell him to talk to the officials in the department and stop calling me. That was it.
And you never...
No, he said again, Lungile Mfanayit.
And you never got to meet Duduzane himself?
No, I didn't see him again since.
Thank you. And then,
So we just need to say it's all right, my friend. It's all right.
Yes, indeed.
I think, Paul, that's the closest
Yeah.
English. Yeah, that's what he said.
You know, Chair, I've asked the president. One day I asked him, "Do you know I've been trained to look after presidents?" He says, "Yes." I said, "Who trained me?" He said, "Tambo." I said to him, "But why don't you use me, to look after you?" And he didn't answer. But I asked him that question one time. When the things were unraveling, I could see he was losing all court cases. Everything was just not happening. And we were there, we were the brains that have been trained by the organization, and it's not utilizing us. Now, we'll come back to you, Ms. Buthelezi. Let me talk a bit. There's another thing. That is, when ministers are appointed, I've mentioned the Secretary General is there. But when the President reshuffles, he's alone. Meaning that there is discontinuity somewhere. So who's advising him to reshuffle? And in the NEC, I said to him, Mr. President, let's help you. the team we had before, the one I mentioned, which saved him from going to jail previously.
Yes.
Why don't we institute this team again, reconstitute it, so that when we are making these decisions, at least there is a sounding board. You can disagree with us, but at least we would have told you something. But you are talking to yourself and doing things alone. And we can't run the country like that. No one does it. It doesn't work.
What did you say?
In the NEC, sometimes he doesn't respond. He just keeps quiet. And when it loses, thank you very much, comrades.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So the NEC did raise some concerns regarding...
Not once. Like I said before, several times.
Thank you. Chair,
I'm just, oh, it's about tea time, but maybe I'll say this. I'm just wondering whether if the NEC was very concerned about what his friendship with the Gupta family was doing to him, to the organization itself, and maybe to the country already, whether the NEC was feeling helpless as to what should be done, because the fact that they didn't raise the issue once, they raised it a number of times, must mean it was bothering them. So I don't know whether you want to answer now, to say something.
Chair, he had a strong faction in the NEC. So the people were supporting him.
Even on the friendship?
Yeah, because some of them came from that friendship themselves.
Oh.
They were beneficiaries of that friendship.
Is that so?
Now, at some point, some of us just decided to keep quiet. And I was telling them in the last session, say that at least today we're discussing politics, so some of us will speak. Because you can almost predict as to who's going to say what before they speak. So the factions had solidified. There was a faction which was not it was unrelenting in defending him. That's why it lasted so long, this saga. Now, and so when we were recalling him, after he finished the presidency of the NC, and we were trying to get him to get out of office. And he was asking the question, what have I done? You know? So...
This is now when?
Now, recently.
2018.
Yeah, last
beginning
year.
of the year.
Yeah. So because we sent the Secretary General and the President to go and talk to him, he asked the question, what have I done? Well, he sees nothing wrong with what he did. So in response, in a meeting, I was saying, what he has done was to auction executive authority. And now, the next president who comes is going to inherit an empty office in terms of authority. That's the biggest sin he has done, to auction executive authority.
Now, you were saying this
in the national executive.
In the national executive.
When we were debating his removal.
Yeah.
You when we were forcing him to resign.
Yes.
So that's what I said.
Yes, yes.
He has auctioned executive authority.
Yes.
Gave it to third parties.
Yes.
So we're going to inherit an empty state.
Well, that is a profound statement. It seems to suggest that you were saying he had basically given his executive authority to somebody else.
To a third party, yes.
That's what you are saying.
Yeah, to a third party.
And what was the sense of the NEC about that statement? Was it share that view, sentiment? Was it shared by many or not, or you don't know?
I think there was general agreement that the then president had actually failed us. But now he was not in a position to change the decisions of the NEC because he was no more president. And that's why we asked him to resign. So it means by that act, the executive endorsed the decision, the assessment that we're giving, that the man must leave before he does more and more damage. Because he wanted 6 months before he could leave office. That's what he was suggesting to us, and we then took a decision that we might have to remove him by force, by ordering the caucus to actually remove him. And then we conveyed that to him, and then he relented.
In terms of your recollection, round about when was it that the NEC began to express to him their concern about his friendship with the Gupta family? If you can go back, what's the earliest you can remember?
During the second term, Chairman, 2014 going forward, the first term was okay. We didn't see much of the damage.
Yes.
But this second term, something else happened. And that's when some companies began to express reservations about many things that were going wrong in the country and also in the organization.
Yes.
So
maybe I must just say, before you complete your answer, there is the second term of his presidency as ANC president, then the
and
second
also
term
government,
as country president.
As government, yes.
Yeah.
In fact, starting from Mangaung, once he got a second term, there began to be a bit of tensions within even the officials themselves.
Yes, yeah.
Because some of them were talking to us. They were telling us, you know, guys, this is a difficult situation. I can demonstrate something. You know, when I went to minerals, I found that that the Mineral Act needed to be amended because we wanted to do certain policy changes. One, to promote local beneficiation of minerals so that we then put a price which encourages industrialization in South Africa.
Yes.
Two, the question of once empowered, forever empowered. In other words, the BEEs of the first ones, some sold their shares.
Yes.
And then there was an issue whether they can be reissued with new shares and those sort of issues. There was the issue of gas and oil exploration. So we needed policy certainty in terms of amending that act, because the industry was saying so, that look, we can't invest money unless we are clear what government position is on these things. So we put the bill through Parliament. Whilst it was in committee stage, I decided I was going to consult with the officials of the NC so that I've got a clear mandate, political mandate.
Yeah.
So I go to these officials, he's chairing the meeting, and I brief them about these issues. He says, the minister never talked to me. These ministers do as they wish. Now, we can't process this thing here. And they allowed him to return me back.
We can't process?
The
meeting could not
issues
continue.
I had brought to them.
Yes.
Because he wants me to talk to him alone.
Yes.
Now, the result of that is that the Minerals Act is still being processed in Parliament because of that. Because he did not give me a second chance to talk to him on this particular issue.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with a situation of we can call it reckless management. Because we're saying we don't have jobs in the country, but we can create certainty, policy certainty for people to invest in the country and in a critical department like minerals. So the only thing, because after I left there, the Minister Zwane came in. I think the only thing why he was unhappy is because I had not naturalized the Guptas to qualify for BEE in South Africa. And that's what they did after I left.
I'm sorry, just repeat that. You had not what?
You see, Chairman, the BEE is for citizens of the country.
Yes.
Now, these people, Guptas, had just come into the country. Now, they amend the policy to say even the naturalized citizens can qualify for BEE. I think that was the reason why partly they got rid of me from minerals.
Yes,
or promoted me, as he put it.
No, that's very important. Now, you said they had just come into the country from what one, I think, affidavits that I've read, they seem to have arrived at different times, but the first ones, I don't know, early 90s, and then others late 90s, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of your knowing about their existence, that would have been around when?
Again, Jabu, my friend, told me something. There was a World Cricket match in South Africa, which did not happen it was meant to be done in India. And then that match was shifted to South Africa. So Jabu and other guys were working on hosting that match. That's when Jabu became aware of their presence, because they simply grabbed that match and made lots of money out of it. So it would make them, I can't remember, we can check when that match was, but I think it's before the World Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's before the World Cup, yeah.
Yes.
In that period, somewhere there.
Okay.
That's when they started grabbing everything from the citizens.
Now, when you were Minister of Mineral Resources, as far as you know, had they become naturalized citizens or had they not, as far as you know?
No, I don't know, but we can verify that, because the matter is before the parliamentary committee.
Yes.
Former Minister Gigaba is talking about it there.
Yes.
So we can find out easily.
Yes, but I want to go back to what you were saying when you were talking about BEE and naturalized citizens. You said something along the lines that you are removed because you didn't want to naturalize them, or you didn't want to extend the benefits of BEE to naturalized citizens. I just want to make sure I understand what you are saying there, because that might be very important.
Well, Chair, there's not one single reason why I was promoted from minerals. There's a conjuncture of circumstances.
Yes.
Which surround this family, the Gupta family.
They all are surround this,
everything is revolves
around them. Yes.
So the only conclusion I could arrive at was that they tried everything to convince me to do certain things, and that has become an obstacle in that sense. And that goes to the heart of the commission, that ministers could be removed.
It does, yeah.
Ministers could be removed if they did not cooperate.
Yes.
And then they tell others, you see, Ramatlhodi, now we've shifted him. If
Yeah.
you don't cooperate, we're going to remove you. So they were using, they had real authority.
That's the Gupta family you are talking about.
I'm talking
Tell
about the
others.
Gupta family.
Yes, yes. Okay, let's, it's past. We'll take the short adjournment, which is just for tea. We will resume at 11:45. Thank you, we adjourn.
Take it, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
The blues tight.
That's fine. Okay. Oh, my line just dropped. My line just dropped. Line dropped. Can they phone me again?
Okay. Can you call I?
There we go.
Dial IV? Aren't just to the Move more to the right.
Ms. Buthelezi, before we proceed, Mr. Ramatlhodi, I'm sorry, I'm going to take you back because some of the evidence you have told us about is very important. Let's go back to NEC meetings where the former president would have been asked, at least by some of the members of the NEC, why he was not ending this friendship of his between himself and the Gupta family, because it was, as I understand your evidence, damaging him. It was damaging the organization as well. What you said when I asked you why the NEC might not have taken any further steps if it realized that this was damaging, you mentioned that there was a faction within the NEC which was, I think you may have said unrepentant?
Unrelenting.
Or unrelenting, yeah, unrelenting in, I understood that you were saying in defending his position. Is that correct?
Correct, Chair, correct.
And this faction, was it in the majority in the ANC, in the NEC? Or not necessarily?
My sense is it had the upper hand because of the power of the president in the NEC.
Yes.
And in other words, he would disregard the flow of debates,
yeah,
and arrive at his own conclusions,
yes,
contrary to what the flow of debates were.
yes, yes.
And use that position as to summarize and then impose his own thoughts. I can give you one example.
Yeah.
You see, the conference in KZN was called forward. They had not finished 5 years. The conference before the last one.
Is
Now,
that the national conference or provincial?
The provincial conference.
Of the ANC in KZN?
Yeah. So there was a debate on that issue. He wanted the conference, in fact, he wanted to terminate the chairmanship of Senzo Mkunu earlier than the constitution required.
Yes.
So the debate in the NEC was going against that.
Yes.
Now, what he then did in summarizing, he insisted on the conference being brought forward. And that happened.
Oh.
Where Kunu was removed as chairman. Now, that thing led to a lot of unhappiness in KZN. Because then it meant that the province was becoming disunited. And that might have implications for the coming elections in 2014 for the NC. And there's such examples. So this is not the only one, but there are several others.
Well, you must tell me if my understanding of what you are saying is correct. I understand you to say there would be a discussion on an issue at an NEC meeting. And the weight or the preponderance of the views would be flowing in a certain direction. But there would be some people who take a different view, but their view would not seem to be as supported as the other one.
Yeah.
But when he summarizes, he would go for...
Takes the minority view.
He would take the minority view.
Correct.
And that minority view would then be recorded as the decision of the NEC. of the provincial conference of the ANC that you have referred to.
In KZN.
In KZN. And you say there are a number of examples where that's how he operated. Yes. And this was never raised to, this would never be raised like in the next NECDC, because I understand that once he had spoken at the end of the conference, nobody could speak after that.
Occasionally, some people would speak. Like when things began to unravel in KZN, the issue was reopened. People were saying, can't you see that this decision is wrong? Because now we have introduced divisions in the province, which we could have avoided had the president not insisted on the conference being brought forward. Yeah.
So you have a situation where you say at NEC meetings, the NEC would not vote on issues. They would, it would try to make decisions by sufficient consensus. But what you are saying is effectively sometimes, and you say there are a number of those times, what would be recorded as reflecting the NEC decision would be a minority view, but it would stay as the decision of the NEC.
That's my understanding, Chairperson. And you see, Chair, the affection is a very difficult animal to control because these people meet before a big meeting somewhere and they canvass positions and then they arrive at decisions and then no member of affection is allowed to dissent because the faction can punish you badly if you are caught disrespecting the decisions. So unlike informal consultations, where you don't take binding decisions amongst yourselves, but you can exchange views on an issue that is coming, but you don't go there and sing the same page, same song, hymn. So that's what the faction does.
Yeah.
But the result is that it factionalizes the non-faction in the sense that those who are not members of the faction would then take positions which are not canvassed by the faction. So you could end up with that sort of a situation where you have got a non-faction becoming factionalized or by a faction. And that's what we have been dealing with in that national executive. New tendency in the NC.
Yes. And as far as you recall, for the second term, for the former president's second term as ANC president, this issue of factions in the NEC was quite strong.
Yeah, it solidified.
It solidified.
You know, we went to a conference in Bloemfontein, and where we elected him the second time as president of the NC. And the then Secretary General Kgalema Motlanthe was challenging him for the position.
Yes.
And he lost. I mean, Motlanthe lost. Now, I was staying with Mabuse Msimang in the same compound. The old man, former Treasurer General of the NC, Msimang, and they're asking me, Ngoako, why are you guys supporting this guy?
Meaning
President Zuma.
Yes.
Why are you guys supporting him?
Yes.
Because we know him. We're going to run into trouble. My response was, I don't want us to repeat what we did with Mbeki, previously. And then you have a cope. coming out and so on. So I think let's allow him to finish his term. On the side of caution. But once he started doing what we've been describing here, I could not even look them in the eye. Because they told me,
Yes.
they warned me, they said,
Yes.
you see, this thing that you guys are about to do is going to fall flat on your face. Yeah.
So you would say that the NEC, for most of the time, while he remained president of the ANC as well, seemed to feel helpless as to what to do to force him to end this friendship with the Gupta family.
Yeah, we couldn't do much. He had too much power, in my view, in the NEC. And the power arises out of the support system that was within the organization, in the NEC. That's where the power came from. So you can speak until you are yellow in the face, and they just look at you, and then you can't convince any member of a faction. At some point, you get tired of talking. You just look at them and keep quiet. Go to the NEC, stay for a week and keep quiet. Just watch them.
Well, it is possible that after all the evidence has been heard in this commission, when I look at what environment may have been there, either in the country including maybe in the ANC, in the NEC, that may have contributed or facilitated the continuation of certain things or certain things happening, it may be that one might have to look at what should have been done to arrest the situation. Do you have any views of what you think the NEC could have done and should have done, maybe at a certain stage, which might have contributed to arresting the situation in terms of the Gupta activities?
We are talking now about a renewal of the NEC. And at the heart of that message is an attempt to break the back of factions in the NEC, so that we are guided by logic and rationality, that we are able to make decisions in the interest of the country, not in the interest of individuals. That's what we are trying to do. We are trying to address that. It's not going to be easy because a faction grows like a tree. It's got some roots. So you have got to uproot it and teach people new ways of doing things. And political education alone is not enough. You are dealing with a situation where at least you are not going to have patronage, which was feeding this animal that I'm talking about. And that patronage came from the top. So at least we have removed that top. And my sense is we should be able to begin to move elsewhere. Like in the last meeting, which we had of the NEC, people were quite rational. They were talking politics. So some of us began to speak. We had lost our tongues previously. So there is element of progress. That's my sense.
Well, that seems to have arisen only after the former president was no longer president of the ANC. My question is, while he remained president of the ANC, why didn't the NEC do something? Because on your evidence, you are saying they realized that his friendship with the Gupta family was detrimental to him, was detrimental to the organization, and if I understood it correctly, detrimental to the country. The ANC had been elected by the people of South Africa. Now they have put forward the former president as their candidate for the president. He was elected in parliament, he became the president. There were a number of meetings of NEC meetings where I imagine the NEC would be looking at events in the country and seeing how it was doing and how its government was doing, how its president was performing as president of the country. They were concerned and they had expressed their concern to him at NEC meetings on what you have told us, to say this friendship of yours with the Gupta family is damaging yourself, damaging you, it's damaging the organization, it's damaging the country. Why don't you end it? And you have told us that each time he would say at the end, but the Gupta family assisted my children, assisted me, or assisted my children when I was persona non grata, when nobody would assist us. So one would have thought that if the NEC was convinced this friendship is really detrimental to the organization and to the country, they would want to look at the next thing to do. So the question is, why did they wait until he was no longer president of the ANC? What is it that was disempowering them from doing something?
Chair, you can characterize that period as a season of madness in the organization. In the sense that there was a paralysis of the NEC, occasioned by what I've described as a faction which was led by the head of the organization. Now, this went to ridiculous levels. I mean, at some point we voted on a collective responsibility on something. I can't remember what it was. But the NEC basically owned up to the mistakes that the former president had done, and we took collective responsibility. So it went to the extreme levels. It means the balance of power within the NEC was in his favor. That can only be, that's the only rational explanation one can give, that he had two things to his advantage. He had a group of people he was leading who would caucus and impose some decisions. If they can't, he does it himself on the organization. So others just become paralyzed.
The NEC, as I understand it, for a long time, I don't know whether for now, had many members, I think over 80 at some stage.
Yeah, we are more or less that number.
Now, that's a large group of people, which I assume are from all over the country. And here is a situation which, at least as far as they are concerned, they see it's really unacceptable, and it's damaging the organization, it's damaging the president, it's damaging the country. They raise the issue with him, and I take it that the reason he used to provide was not being accepted by, the majority as acceptable for not ending the friendship. But then they don't do anything until he's no longer president of the ANC. So my question goes back to saying, apart from having factions, would there be anything else maybe in the way the NEC operates, or in the way the ANC operates, or in the Constitution that simply made it impossible or disempowered people who may have seen what the right thing is to do, but they wouldn't go there?
My own sense is, if we're looking for improvements, we might want to amend the way the NEC is making decisions. I think it's a key thing that we need to do. And that no one has got sole authority to summarize the decisions of the organization as it takes them, and substitute those decisions with his own decisions and call them the decisions of the NEC. So we might want to look at how the decisions of the NEC are arrived at, so that you don't have, we might even consider voting as a mechanism, so that numbers can speak for themselves. Yes, the NEC is big. You have got directly elected members and those who are representing provinces. Each province secretary and chairman of the NEC attends the NEC by invitation. So they are full members of the NEC. So I just think that would be the possible way forward.
Well, that may be, and probably is right, to say that they may have to look at saying, you know, this thing of not voting ends up with a situation where decisions are made that might not really be supported by the majority.
Correct.
But that might not be the only thing. Wasn't there, can't one also say there may not have been enough people with courage to say at the next meeting of the NEC, hang on, what was recorded by the president at the end of the last meeting as reflecting the decision was actually a decision of the view of the minority. We must change that, because that somebody could say that.
You see, the role of the office of the Secretary General becomes important, because he or she is the one recording the decisions. And if such does not come out clearly in the minutes, because we do go through the minutes,
Yes.
then you might not be able to really challenge those sort of decisions. So there were people who there are people who are courageous in the NEC. Some of them got fired because of that, from their jobs.
Yes.
So you can think of Minister Hanekom and all that group. So they were actually tabling a motion of no confidence.
Yes.
In the president, in the NEC.
Yes.
Which was never carried through. Because we never voted on any of those. So there are people who are definitely very vocal.
Yes.
They tried it twice, I think, and twice that motion failed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is the position that maybe there were too few members of the NEC who were prepared to stand up and say, no, but this is wrong?
I suppose that could be a reading of the situation in some meetings. At some point, I think there are many who resign themselves to the fate.
To say there's nothing I can do.
You can't change anything. You speak, at the end, you're just wasting your breath.
And then once you have reached that point and you are a member of a committee or anybody, and once there are actually enough people who have reached that point, quite frankly, it ceases to be to have as much value as it might have had if everybody feels free to contribute.
No, I agree with that, Chair. like I said in the last NEC, you reach a point where it's useless to speak because you can't influence anybody's from their rigid positions.
Yeah.
So you tend to give up.
Yeah.
Maybe the honorable thing would be to resign,
Yes.
but if you do, the balance of power might change one day, and you might not be able to implement what we did eventually with the numbers. That is, to force him to resign. Eventually, we managed to do it.
You see, I hear the part about the NEC having been able to effectively get him to resign when it did. My concern is more why
This late?
Yeah, why this late? You know, because from what you have said, and from what you have said, for quite some time the NEC was seeing what was happening and what effects, you know, this friendship was having on the organization and so on and so on, and had raised the issue not once, as you have said, a number of times, and each time he would say, you know, they assisted my children when nobody else could assist me. And then that's where the matter would end. Then, to the extent that the friendship may have continued to damage the organization, to the extent that the friendship may have continued to damage him, to the extent that the friendship may have continued to damage the country is entitled to ask the question, and I would ask the question, why would the NEC not have acted earlier?
It took a conference to change the balance of power. Nazareth. It was only that remedy that came in. Before that, it was paralysis. If you are paralyzed, you don't do much. So you could look at the NEC in that sense.
Yes.
As a paralyzed organization.
Yes.
Because of the factors I've been trying to elucidate.
Yeah.
So it took a conference to change the balance.
You see, part of the concern would be this, that you obviously take a certain view of the position after the change of leadership in the party in terms of what is happening and what the NEC and the organization as a whole is able to do, blah, 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 blah. And that may well work fine. But the question is, that may be so because of the incumbent to the position, to the office of president of the organization now. What if in the future, could there be another personality who becomes president of the organization and the organization goes back to the kind of paralysis that you have told us about? And of course, mainly I'm looking at that because insofar as the ANC is the governing party and insofar as it may still be the governing party if that were to happen in the future, the country needs to say, could we go back through the same situation with an NEC that realizes a situation that's unacceptable but being helpless to stop it?
Chair, I think we are discussing renewal of the NC, and we are looking at the Constitution as well in terms of branches. For instance, we did not have branches for professionals. Let's put it that way. So we are looking at a whole area of constitutional amendments. But I think at the heart of your question, what you are seeking to do, to achieve, would be the constitution should be amended in a manner that the fate of the organization is not in the hands of one individual. So if we achieve that, it will be okay, because you cannot regulate the type of people who occupy those strategic positions. Because they get voted for in office by membership, some by membership. Even the membership systems can be corrupted. But if you build a system which does not depend on the will of one individual, then perhaps that's where we should be heading for. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I thought it was important to explore all of those issues. Yes, Ms. Buthelezi.
Thank you, Chair. Before
Thank you, Chair. Yes.
we close this topic, how often did the NEC meet? How often did you have these NEC meetings?
They are scheduled once, maybe 4 or quarterly, something like that. And you can have emergency meetings as well. So
generally 4 times a year.
You'd have about 6 or so a year, I think.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to your statement. Your interactions with Mr. Muofhe and Ngubane regarding suspension of optimized I'm sorry. Okay, so I'll repeat the question, my mic was off. Your interaction with Dr. Ngubane and Mr. Muofhe regarding the suspension of Optimum Mind.
Yeah, what happened is there's a Henrina power station, which is supplied by the Glencoe owned at the time mine of, what do you call it again?
Optimum
mine. Yes. And that is a coal-fired power station built right on the site of the mine. Now, so it supplies with a conveyor belt. They get the coal and then it gets into the power station in Rina, in Mpumalanga. Now, what happened is, Mr. Muofhe, we were in the middle of power outages at the time. And then Muofhe was then transferred from Transnet to ESCOM. Upon arrival there, he then suspended the collection of the coal from that mine, Optimum, which is dedicated to that power station.
Yes.
And his reasons were that Glencoe owes ESCOM 2 billion rand, and he wants the money before he can continue with the operations.
Are you able to remember more or less how soon after his arrival at ESCOM he did this? You might not remember.
No, I don't.
But you would say
But
soon.
I think we can verify.
Yeah, okay.
It's public knowledge. So we can get the information. Now, so I arranged to meet him one-on-one. I met him here in Waterfall at Tintswalo. It's a hotel somewhere in Waterfall there. I could do that because I gave Brian Muofhe his first job as a young student from Taflop. He was bright and so on, and I was premier. I made him chief director, fresh from school.
Yeah.
So I've got a relationship with him.
Yes.
It's like my younger brother.
Yes.
And so I discussed this issue with him, and he agreed to open negotiations with Glencoe.
Yes.
Then that same evening, he called me to say, the chairman wants him and the chairman himself to meet with me the next day. That is Dr. Ngubane. Yeah.
That's Dr. Ngubane, the
Dr.
chairman.
Ngubane, chairman of ESCOM at the time.
Yes.
Now, I realized that there is something which doesn't make sense, so I decided to involve the department.
Yes.
So I asked them to come to mineral resources officers in
Yes.
Pretoria. In attendance were several of my officials.
Yes.
And so Dr. Ngubane then demands that I should take all the licenses
At the meeting now.
that Glencore has.
That is at the meeting now.
Yeah, at the meeting, right in the meeting. So he's overriding the agreement with Muofhe.
Yes.
Now, so I then said to him,
And
Doctor,
you say he demands that
yeah,
you
he
use
demands,
that word.
he says he wants to finish with the meeting, he's going to report to the president before the president leaves. So I said to him, such things cannot be done. He says, but you are the minister, you have the power, you can do it.
so
now-
he was like, he wanted you to do it now.
Yeah, I had to do it before the president left for Europe. Now, I said to him, I don't take decisions like that without due process. We are in the middle of power outages here. Now, you want me to take all the licenses. How many mines of Glencore are there supplying our power stations? I don't even have that information. Don't you want us to go into a phased approach so that these things that you are demanding of me are properly processed? By the time I make a decision, I would have to go and look at the organization as well. Because there are implications here. If I suspend licenses, it means the workers are going to lose jobs. 2, we're not going to have electricity, as we don't even now. The situation will get worse. 3, you are going to be treating investors as if they are your children. So I can't take a decision like that. And then he then said, no, then I'm going to tell the president now. I took that to be intimidation. I thought he was intimidating me. That he's going to tell the president, if I don't do it, then the president will deal with me.
And when he mentioned for the first time that he effectively would need to tell the president or report to the president, when he mentioned that for the first time, did you get the impression that he had had a discussion with the former president about the issue and that he was there to...
He had been sent.
He had been sent to
Effectively, yes.
speak to you to...
Yeah.
Okay.
He had been sent by the president. That's my impression.
Yes.
Because he would not have mentioned reporting back if he had
Yes.
not had discussions with the president before.
Yes.
So he said, I want to report back to the president before he leaves,
Yes.
which will be about midday somewhere there. So I said, well, you can tell the president.
He was going to believe, the president was going to...
was going abroad there.
Oh, he was going to be leaving around midday, you say?
Yeah, somewhere
Okay,
there.
yeah.
He was going abroad, I think, to either Russia or India, one of those 2 countries.
Yes.
Now,
before you proceed, I don't know whether this is one of those which I noted might not have dates. Are you able to remember round about when it was when that meeting took place? Even if you don't remember the exact date, but in terms of month.
I was chair. I was upon the return of the president from that trip, which was 2015.
Yes.
I think around September, more or less. That's when I was summoned to Matamando.
So the meeting would have been early in September or in August?
More or less.
More or less,
But
okay,
we'll
2015.
confirm that. We'll confirm that.
Yeah,
Chair.
2015.
We'll confirm that, Chair.
Yeah, okay.
Now, so
Advocate Ramatlhodi, if I may refer you to Annexure B that you referred to.
page.
It's that from page 7, but
27, you said?
page 7.
Page 7.
Yes.
Okay. Your voice is soft, so remember to always try and raise it.
I'll do so, Chair. On paragraph, on the following page, page 8, paragraph 10,
Page 8.
Yes, of that
Okay.
article. You do confirm the contents of this article. There is a report that said Zuma went to China on 2nd September 2015.
Yeah, I confirm.
Will that be the date?
Yeah, that's the date, yes.
So your meeting with Dr. Ngubane and Mr. Brian Muofhe would have happened on the 2nd of September 2015, which was the day the president was going to leave.
When he was leaving, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it would have
All
happened
right.
then.
That's very helpful, yes.
Thank you.
Right, you may continue. So how did this meeting between yourself on the one hand and your officials and Brian Muofhe and Dr. Ngubane on the other hand, how did it end?
It ended with me saying, I'm not able to just revoke the licenses like that. And that I want a first approach to resolve the issue of the 2 billion. And that the department would be ready and willing to mediate. And that he could then go and tell the president my answer.
Just repeat that.
No, I then advised him to go and report back to the president.
This is Dr. Ngubane.
Yeah,
Yes.
I said to him, go and report back to the president. This is what I mean. This is my approach.
This is my stance, yeah.
This is my approach to this issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how the meeting ended.
It ended, then the president came back after a week or so, and then he asked me to come to Matlamadlo, to his house, residence.
Okay, before that, let's go back to the meeting. Did you raise the issue with the 2 men as to, but what happened to my arrangement with Muofhe that he must open negotiations? Did you raise that? And if you did, what was the response?
I didn't ask Muofhe there in that meeting because it was obvious to me that Dr. Ngubane had taken a position which was overruling the agreement.
Yes.
And I simply repeated what I had said to Muofhe, that I am prepared to engage, to assist, to resolve the thing. And that is it. That's where it is. It ended there.
And your position was that if you did what Dr. Ngubane was saying you should do, was demanding you should do, then the situation about outages, electricity outages would just
and
be
the
worse.
workers,
And then the workers.
about 35,000 or so would have been affected, plus minus.
Yeah. And when you made these points to them, what was their response about the fact that
Dr.
workers would lose jobs?
He repeated the thing, you are a minister, you've got the power, you can do it.
Yes, thank you. You were continuing and I stopped you. Or Ms. Buthelezi, you want to lead him?
Thank you. I wanted to find out from you what did Mr. Muofhe, what was Muofhe's contribution to this meeting, the second meeting now that you had in the presence of Ngubane?
No, he said, no, wait. His boss was there now. He was accompanying the chairman. He didn't utter a word in that meeting.
So basically it was the chairman who had taken over.
Yeah, he had taken over the operations.
Yeah.
He had descended into the arena.
Yes.
He was now the chief executive officer of ESCOM.
Yes.
In addition to being chairperson.
Okay.
Advocate Ramatlhodi, what could have been, why would the president have an interest in Ngoako, Optima and mine?
Subsequent events speak for themselves. Because once I left minerals to public administration,
maybe, I'm sorry, Ms. Buthelezi, maybe let's deal with your departure from minerals resources because you were starting that and then you can come back to this question.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
The president came back from China.
Then he asked me, it was one afternoon, I was even tired. I can't remember, I was in union buildings, meetings. He took me out of the meeting. Then I went to see him there, waited for a while. And then he called me in. There were 2 of us. And
You had gone there for something else.
no, in Union Buildings.
You were just in Union
Union
Buildings.
Buildings is next to Matlambandu.
Oh, yeah.
They are just neighbors, yeah.
Okay.
So I was in Union Buildings for a meeting, and then I was asked to go to see the president.
Yes.
And then I arrived there. He then congratulated me on managing the department very well, and that he wants to wish me well because I am now being promoted to public service and administration job following the demise of Minister Chaban. Now, he then said to me, that portfolio needs somebody senior with your experience as premier, with your legal background, with everything else. We think you can manage that department. And therefore, I am thanking you and promoting you to public service. And I thanked him and left.
So you say that at that meeting with you, he specifically praised you for having managed the Department of Mineral Resources well.
No, I did so. Mr.
Yes.
President did so
Yes.
at the time.
And prior to that, he had never expressed any concern about your performance in that portfolio.
No, he never did.
Yes, and how did you...
Except, Chair, the thing I raised about him sending my attempts to solicit the opinion of officials on
Yes.
that policy issue.
Yes, except for that.
And at that time, he complained that
You had not raised it.
ministers are not consulting me, they do as they like, something like that.
Yes.
So I would want, so that was the complaint.
Yes.
I remember that one.
Okay, okay. How did you understand this concept that from that being taken from the position of Minister of Mineral Resources to being Minister of Public Service Administration was a promotion?
Well, we serve at the will of the President as ministers. So I might have my own ideas, but when I was appointed to minerals, I did not object. So subsequent to that, when I was taken to public administration, also I did not object. I did not inquire as to why. I simply left, but had my own conclusions that, and I began to see certain things happen. The issue of optimum was not resolved until the mine was sold to the Guptas under Minister Zwane supervision, who went to minerals when I left. Right.
No, I understand that, and I understand that every minister serves at the pleasure of the president, and the president can move a minister from one portfolio to another. But I'm interested. I'm interested in your own understanding. I'm interested in knowing whether, in your own understanding of these portfolios of minerals and of public service administration, whether in your own understanding this was a promotion or it was same level, or what was your own understanding? I know that he was saying he was promoting you.
Chair, I had refused to cooperate with him in that portfolio.
Yes.
In other words, in minerals, I had
Yes.
refused.
Yes.
Because I felt we're doing a good job and we're being forced to do wrong things. So the promotion was punishment to send a message. And the interesting thing is that once I got out there, a Gupta minister came in.
Yes.
Now, so there's a correlation between this
Yes.
this sense,
Yes.
that you are sent to public administration, and then a man who is known and who confesses to be a Gupta friend replaces you, and then all of a sudden, Optimum Mine is sold to the Guptas. That's the sequence of events.
Well, let's talk about your successor at Minerals, being a man who confesses to be a Gupta person or associated with the Guptas. Can you just speak more about that, because that may be important? From what you are saying, it's like you know he has said so in your presence. I just want to.
No, when Minister Zwane was MEC for Agriculture in the Free State, he's the one who issued a letter of invitation to the Guptas too. There is a case running of the dairy and all.
Estina.
Yeah, something like that.
Estina, yeah.
Yeah. He is supposed to have invited the Guptas to come to South Africa, and they used that letter as a basis for them to land at Waterkloof, claiming to be carrying some ministers from India. So there is a very clear connection between him and them.
Yes, yes. That part I understand, but you were saying confesses, and I thought maybe he may have, in your presence, said, well, I don't hide my relationship with the Guptas or anything like that.
Definitely, yes. When we were in cabinet together, yes, I was sitting next to him.
Yes.
Yeah, so he was not hiding it.
He was not hiding
So
it.
Van Rooyen was not hiding it.
Yes. Yes.
They were not hiding that relationship.
Okay, so even Mr. Van Rooyen.
Yes,
Yeah.
even Van Rooyen.
Yeah.
Very boastful about it in particular.
He was boastful about
His
his
relationship
association.
with
Yeah.
this guy. So you can call me a Gupta minister. It doesn't bother me.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Let's go back to you have already articulated in some way what you regard as the reasons for your removal from mineral resources. I just want to make sure that I've captured, I understand it correctly. What I understand you to be saying is that in actual fact, when you look at the sequence of the events and what happened before I was removed, the reason why I was removed from being Minister of Mineral Resources is my refusal to cooperate with the Gupta family. Is that
That's
an
my
accurate?
assertion, Chair, that's my assertion.
That is your position.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If we may move on to the issue of the appointment of the Director General, DMR, after your departure. In your statement, you state that you were approached or you were given a recommendation from the DMR to appoint Mr. Manye. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, what happens is Director Generals and Deputy Director Generals are appointed by the President in Cabinet. Now, but the way it happens is that the Minister of Public Administration is the one in charge of the processes. In other words, I've got to look at qualifications of the particular candidates. I've got to look at the composition of the interviewing panel. In the case of a Director General, there must be no less than 2 ministers present in the interview. So they conduct, first they advertise the post, and then they constitute a panel who select the candidates who come for interviews. After the interviews, then they approach Public Service and Administration to take the memo to Cabinet for concurrence. So, in other words, no minister can employ a head of a department without the concurrence of Public Service Administration. So the Minister of Public Administration is in fact a supervisor in terms of the selection processes of the chiefs of the heads of the departments. On this occasion,
Maybe that's where the promotion comes from.
yeah, indeed, because you become a minister of ministers in some respects.
Yeah.
Because you can say no or yes, and then the fight starts. So, on this occasion, they brought in an application where they were recommending Mr. Manye. And I looked up
For which department now? Minerals?
for minerals. You see what they did. What they did, these people, they brought in a Gupta minister and they bring in a director general of the Guptas.
But
So they will bring them as twins.
yeah, but had Mr. Dr. Ramatlhodi, had he left or what? The one
No,
who was
they
DG?
got rid of him quickly. As soon as I left, they made it clear to him that he must leave.
How?
And other chiefs of directors were shifted. They clean, what they do, they operate, they clean everybody in the department and put their own people. That's the way they act. They bring in a minister and then they deal with the department. So in other ways, they are destroying the capabilities that are in government by bringing people who know nothing about. They don't even keep institutional memory. They're ruthless.
As a matter of interest, how long had, is it Dr. Ramatlhodi?
Been there.
Was that his name? How long had he been there by the time you left? More
No,
or
I
less.
found him there.
Yes.
He was Director General.
And you kept him?
Yeah, so I inherited him. And I basically just inherited the structure.
Yes.
As I found it.
Yes.
Because I don't subscribe to the view that when you are a minister, you must come and sweep and hoover, like
Yeah.
a hoover, take out the stuff out of the department and put your own people. I don't subscribe to that. So
Advocate Ramatlhodi, if I may just stop you for a second. If I may, you may have a look at page 8 of the bundle. It's your annexure that you attached. It's
Yeah,
an
yeah.
article by,
Pointer?
yes.
At page 8, you said?
Yes, on page 8,
Yeah. Number
line number 6.
6, yeah?
Yes, it appears that the Dr. Ramatlhodi resigned in December 2015.
Yeah, citing personal reasons. They put him under pressure.
You,
It's 3 months after I left.
yes, you left in September
Yeah.
and he left in
He resigned.
December.
Yeah, 3 months he left, after I left.
Yes.
And then you were approached to concur in the appointment of somebody else,
In this case, Mr. Mzwanele
Manye.
Manye.
Yes.
Then there was an exchange of letters between me.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ramatlhodi. I just remember the question I wanted to ask earlier. You can't remember how long Dr. Ramatlhodi had been in the Department of Mineral Resources at the time you left, but you know that you found him there. In terms of his qualifications, do you know whether his qualifications may or may not have been related to mining and so on?
I think it's geoscientist, something like that. I think he's got a doctorate in that.
Do you know whether that would be related in any way to mining, or you don't?
Definitely.
It definitely would be, yes. Okay, and his doctorate would have been in that field?
Yeah, in the minerals area.
In the minerals. Yeah. So this was somebody who, even academically, was quite had a lot of qualifications in the sector of minerals.
Correct.
And he had been DG for a long time at minerals. Okay, and now he resigned, and then you were asked to concur in the appointment of Mr. Mzwanele Manye.
Correct.
Yes, then you may continue.
Now, Chair, I then indicated to Minister Zwane that I was unable to appoint Mr. Manye because he did not have a postgraduate certificate or degree. As per our minute, which tells me, Minister responsible, that for a candidate to succeed in this, he must have a postgraduate. On that basis, which is a technical thing, we were not able to then appoint Mr. Manye.
So, Advocate Ramatlhodi, if I may ask you to look at page 27 of the bundle.
Yeah.
That's the communication from yourself to Minister Zwane.
27, no?
Yes.
Let's see. Yes, I've got it, 27.
You give reasons why you did not agree with them to table the memo to Cabinet on the appointment of Mr. Manye. Can you read the reasons you provided for the record? They appear from the last paragraph of that page and the first paragraph of the page that follows, 28.
The last paragraph on page 27 reads as follows. Your department recommendation, by the way, this is the letter to Minister Zwane from me.
Yes, yes.
Your department's recommendation that Mr. Manye be appointed as Director General Mineral Resources, General Mineral Resources, does not comply with the requirements of the post as advertised and with the provisions of the directive on compulsory capacity development, mandatory training days, and minimum entry requirements for senior management services, issued on the 1st April 2015, as amended. Amongst the requirements of the said directive are specific entry requirements regarding the minimum educational qualifications for the appointment of a head of department, which are, and I quote, an undergraduate qualification and a postgraduate qualification, NQF level 8, as recognized by South African Qualifications Authority. So those are the reasons I provided.
Yes. So appointing Mr. Manye would have been in breach of the legislative framework.
Correct. Of the directive which we issued on the 1st April 2015,
Yes.
to all departments that
Yes.
we are looking for this and that
Yes.
as public service administration.
Okay. You may continue, Ms. Buthelezi.
Thank you. You then on paragraph 26.3, you also pointed out that Mr. Manye worked for the Guptas after he left public service.
Mr. Manye, following that refusal,
Sorry?
following my refusal to appoint him,
Yes.
he then approached my then special advisor, Advocate Muofhe, and asked as to whether there was a problem between the minister and Mr. Manye. Minister, referring to Minister Ramatlhodi. So, Advocate Muofhe then replied that there was no problem. The only problem is that you did not qualify for the post. So there are no issues between you and Minister Ramatlhodi. Subsequent to that, Advocate Muofhe then informed me of this discussion.
Yes.
And I did not follow up. I just left it as it was.
Yes.
To me, the matter was closed.
Yes.
Thanks, sir.
Have you had any interaction with Mr. Manye regarding this issue following that?
In recent, about last week, I got a call from someone who told me I need to meet with Mr. Nchabeling. Mr. Nchabeling is in the media space. So when I was, his name is Gruvin. So when I was in in heading the NC elections, he had assisted us to advertise certain things. The result was that the NC was owing him some money. That is this Mr. Nchabeling. Now, so Mr. Nchabeling come to me, he shows me a cell phone number where Mani is complaining to him that I'm singling him out. He, Mani, is being singled out by me. Because there are many other people who were not appointed when I was Public Service Administration Minister, and I've never mentioned them by name. Now, so...
You have never mentioned them by name in what context?
In the sense that I did, because when he came to the department to ask if there were issues between me and him, after that, I was then reshuffled from public service.
Oh.
Now, so I said to Nchabeling, look, the only reason I mentioned him is because he went to the department to inquire. None of other candidates have done that before. So I'm associating my departure with the failure or refusal to appoint him.
Oh, now, that conversation with Mr. Nchabeling, I think you said, when was that?
Now, it's about a week or so ago.
Or maybe Mr. Mani might have received a copy of your statement and so that you
No, he
mentioned-
did, I suppose.
Okay,
But
so-
it's also in the newspapers. I thought I
Yes.
saw it somewhere in the newspapers, in one of the newspapers here.
Oh, okay.
Now, there are things which Mr. Mani is raising, unless if he wants to come and canvass them here, I would rather not elaborate. There was just that contact, and I think I don't want to take it further at this stage, unless he comes and make the claim that he made
Yes.
in a text to Mr. Nchabeling.
Yes.
But my response to Mr. Nchabeling was that I am not about to change the statement I've made. So I'm going to stay with my statement, regardless of what Mr. Mani can say or do later.
Well, that is something that happened last week or so, you said.
Correct.
I think we will come back to it. I would like you to go back to earlier. You had refused to appoint him. You had written to Minister Zwane and told him why you were not agreeing. Did Minister Zwane ever talk to you about your refusal or write to you? And if so, what did he say?
I think there is a letter in here from Minister Zwane. The one I was reading was a response to him.
Okay.
To his letter
Ms.
that he wrote to
Buthelezi,
me.
I apologize to you. I've been asking a lot of questions and not giving you a chance to do your part.
Thank you. The letter on page 29.
Yeah, it's on page 29 from Minister Zwane to Minister Ramatlhodi. Now, he's recommending
Yes.
the appointment. And
Yes.
The one I read earlier on was a response,
Was a
to,
response,
to
yes.
this letter on page 29.
Yes, but what I was asking is whether, having received your letter refusing, whether you ever got any communication from him as to what he thought of your refusal, or whether he ever spoke to you about it.
Yeah, I did raise the issue verbally because we're sitting next to each other in cabinet.
Yes.
And I explained to him why I could not do it
Yes.
And
And
we're
that
still
was the
friends, me and Minister Zwane. I don't see bad blood at all.
Yeah.
Not even with Mr. Mani. There is no bad blood. I just did what I had to do.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. And you said immediately after that you were reshuffled or removed from the Department of Public Service. The letter that I referred you to on page 27, where the signature appears on page 28, it's dated 2016. That is the 8th of June, 2016.
That's the 8th of June.
2016. And when was your removal from the PSA?
I can't remember. It's public knowledge.
Was it not?
But it was the 1st of April,
1st of
I remember.
April,
It was
2017.
April Fool's Day.
Well, that must have been 2016
Maybe 2017,
or 2017.
16, 17, I'm not sure.
Yes, it's the 31st of March or 1st of April, because it was around midnight in 2016.
2016.
Sorry, 2017.
2017.
Yes.
Is there something in the bundle that refreshes our memory?
It's in his statement, paragraph
It's in his statement.
1.4, and it's the same date in which Minister Godan was removed.
Yeah,
Oh.
there were 4 of us.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Anekom, Godan, Ramatlhodi, I can't remember who else.
Yes.
And how did you get to know of your removal?
I had made a joke in the cabinet the previous week, and I was talking about April Fool's Day.
You're talking about?
April Fool's Day,
Yeah.
the next,
Which was coming.
which was coming. So I wake up in the morning, my wife then tells me that you are no more minister, Papa. So
You mean you when you went to bed the previous
I
night,
was a minister.
you were minister,
yeah,
and then
I
you
woke
were-
up, I was no more minister. No communication, nothing. Then I looked at the news and said, it's as well.
Yeah,
Let me go and rest a bit.
sure.
Yeah.
And now, if you are able to remember, and Ms. Buthelezi will tell us if it's in the document, in the bundle, more or less how long was it that you were removed as Minister of Public Service Administration? How long did it take before, after Mr. Mani's inquiry? Was it the previous week or a month?
It could have been 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I stayed there long enough to appoint a new head of department for Minister Zwane.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that takes a few months to do that.
Yeah.
That bit and interviews, selections.
Yes.
So I remember I stayed there until I was able to appoint
Yeah.
the
Okay.
next head of department.
Okay. Ms. Buthelezi?
And in paragraph 29 of your statement, you speak about the interview that you had with
That's
ENCA.
29.
Yes, paragraph 29.
Yeah.
On page 5, the interview that you had with ENCA.
Oh, before the interview, now we know that when you were removed as Minister of Mineral Resources, the former president called you and you had a discussion. He expressed his happiness with how you had performed as Minister of Mineral Resources and said he was now promoting you to the position of Minister of Public Service Administration. That is how your removal happened there. This one, you have told us that the first person to tell you was your wife. And you had never had any communication by the president about whether he was happy or wasn't happy about your performance in the position of Minister of Public Service Administration?
No, and it was strange because me and him are friends, even today.
Yes.
When we meet, we call each other Motoka because the Zumas come from Lesotho originally. They went down the mountain. Their first ship was Masilu. So I know him very well.
Yeah.
We are quite close, and nothing has changed today. We just disagreed on issues, and that is it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you were able to say, in regard to your removal from the position of Minister of Mineral Resources, what your own conclusion is as to the reasons for your removal. Have you been able to make any conclusion as to why you were removed as Minister of Public Service Administration, and maybe why it happened the way it happened and not the same way as the other one?
I'm linking it up to two issues. That is my removal. One, I had not acceded to the appointment of Mr. Maji.
Yes.
Two, I had made a statement, public statement.
Yes.
When the president called Minister Pravin from Europe,
Yes.
and it was announced that he has been called back.
Yes.
When he had just left and landed somewhere.
Yes.
And the next day he was recalled to South Africa.
Yes.
So somebody called me from the newspapers, radio, something like that, and they asked me what were my thoughts about that. And I made a statement that I would hope those who make decisions about Pravin Gordhan's leadership would take the interests of the country into account.
Yes.
And that I would hope that the president in particular would address that matter with that in mind. So that was the week before we were removed, Pravin, myself, and others.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had made that statement.
Yes. So you believe the two may have been or were the reasons?
They might have irritated the president.
Yes. Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I've just been informed that it's now 1 o'clock. If you may take the lunch adjournment.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that it's already.
I won't take more than 15 minutes when we come back.
You'll be able to finish in 15 minutes.
Yes, when we come back.
Maybe we should you go up to 15:15 and then finish with him. What do you think?
Okay, I'll go until 15:15. It's fine.
Okay, I think let's try, and if you are going to be 15 minutes or so, let's try and see whether we can finish so that we can release Mr. Ramatlhodi.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramatlhodi, if we may go to the interview that you had with ENCA, you basically summarize what could be the reasons for your removal.
Which page is that?
On page 29, so on paragraph 29, page 5, you talk about the interview that you had with ENCA, and you make reference to an annexure that is on page 26, annexure E.
26.
Yes. In fact, you refer us to paragraph 5, that you did not cooperate with the Gupta members.
Page 26.
26.
Right. Oh, yes. I see that one.
Yes. Can you talk to that? Were those the reasons or the conclusion that you've drawn for your removals?
Yeah, it goes like, you want us to go to 5?
Yes.
Whereas I did not cooperate with the Gupta members. It's an interview.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Was that the reason you gave for your removal?
I confirm.
Chair, I think that will be all, unless if there's something specific that the Chair would like me to address.
Yes. Mr. Ramatlhodi, we talked about the NEC being concerned, the NEC of the ANC being concerned about the former president's friendship with the Gupta family and what that friendship was doing to the organization and to him and the country. What about the national executive, the cabinet? Were there no concerns that you know about? And I know that you are not able to discuss things that may have been discussed at cabinet unless they are declassified, but you might be aware of discussions that might have happened outside of cabinet, discussions by and between people who were members of the executive, maybe expressing concern.
Not in cabinet.
Yes, but outside, I mean outside, members of the
Well,
cabinet outside.
Some members of cabinet, I can single out Minister Hanakom,
Yes,
Mr. Minister Gordon.
yes,
I might have forgotten some of them,
Yeah.
but they were speaking out,
Yes.
definitely.
yes,
Outside cabinet,
outside cabinet, yeah.
in particular in the NEC.
Yes, yes. Okay, no, that's fine. Anything?
Cabinet
Sorry.
was very cooperative. We were all very cooperating.
Is that so?
Yeah. In cabinet,
Is-
very tame.
is-
all of us.
Is that because you cabinet members serve at the pleasure of the president?
I think that might have been the reason.
Yes, yes. Going back to the party,
So in cabinet, one of the things, once the banks withdrew the recognition of, that is closed the accounts of
the
Gupta families.
yeah,
It was towards the end of cabinet. That's when Minister Zwane suggested that we investigate the banks. And then a committee was set up. At the time, Mr. Gordon was still Minister of Finance. He was supposed to be part of that group. There's a group of 4
yeah,
who met with the banks, and the banks refused to cooperate.
yes.
Yes.
Is your understanding that that committee was trying to get the bank to reverse their decisions? What's your
It was called
understanding?
white monopoly capital. Needed to be dealt with.
Yeah,
So cabinet committee was set up specifically for that.
yes. Yeah, but what I'm asking is whether your understanding was that what this committee was supposed to do included trying to persuade the banks to reverse their decisions or not really.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, okay, okay. Just going back to the party, do you think that the fact that the way in which members of the ruling party get sent to parliament, sent to provincial legislatures, maybe to municipal councils. Do you think that the way, the process and how that happens may have contributed to some, and maybe many members of the party who might have been or might have had strong views about this friendship between the former president of the ANC and the Gupta family, do you think that might have deterred people from maybe really standing up and saying this must stop, because then maybe that could be career limiting in their political careers and so on? Do you think that may have had some influence?
I don't understand the question, Chair.
Oh, okay, maybe I'm being too careful.
Yeah.
Let me try and put it this way. Maybe let me start with another question. For a member of the ANC to get to Parliament or a provincial legislature, to be an MP or an MPL, and maybe even a councillor, maybe let's talk about Parliament and provincial legislatures. Does the process not maybe give party leadership a lot of power in terms of who gets onto the list and so on?
Yeah, we're talking about the party system.
Yeah, yes.
That's
yes.
what we're talking about.
Yes, yes.
As opposed to the constituency system.
Yes, yes.
Yes, the party, under the party system, has got a lot of power over the members.
And that, of course, would apply to all political parties.
That is starting provincial, national.
Yes.
To some extent, local government, but it's a mixed system in local government.
Yes.
In local government, you have got constituency and you have got a list process.
Yes.
So provincial, national, there are no constituencies.
Yes.
In other words, it's just the party that line up its members through its own conference, and the leadership then administers that list.
Yes.
To some extent, yes, there's much power on the leadership.
Yes.
In the leadership.
And my logic says that if there is a lot of power in the leadership at a party level, then if I have ambitions to be in Parliament, to be in a provincial legislature, or to stay long, or even to get promoted to be MEC or to be minister, and knowing the influence of the party on those decisions, if I do anything that may put me in, or that may make the leadership think that I'm not supportive, then that might count against me in terms of my political career. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think...
I know it may be very general what I'm saying, but...
Yeah, but I understand.
Yes.
Given the authority of the party, obviously you have to fall in line.
No, thank you very... Is there anything arising?
Yes, Chair. In fact, it doesn't arise from your question.
Okay.
I've just been sensitized that the question that I asked earlier regarding President's interest on Optimum Mine was not answered. If I may ask Advocate Ramatlhodi, why would the President have an interest in Optimum Mine?
Oh, and now
I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
Yes, and it wasn't Mr. Ramatlhodi's fault. I intervened and then we forgot about it. Yes.
Thank you.
No, I think the answer is very obvious. I mean, he wanted it for the Guptas. And that's what actually happened.
Thank you. And there's another issue that you earlier on testified that you had at some stage formed a committee that assisted the President when he was dealing with his court case. And you have suggested a committee of a similar sort in order to assist him. My last question to you is, what would be your recommendation in assisting a president in as far as appointment of ministers is concerned?
My idea was that we should create a buffer between himself and the Guptas.
Yes.
You surround him with people who would then assist him to make decisions which are proper and informed.
Yeah, yeah.
Because what was clear, he was not dealing with his colleagues. He was not consulting anymore, particularly when he does the reshuffles. So I thought we'd need to create a buffer around him, a wall, so that these guys don't tell him everything to do and he doesn't. That was my thought. That's how I thought of it. So going forward, we might want to look at creating structures like that for our presidents as an additional mechanism. In other words, it's a political advisory thing. It's not a technical tool. We are looking at a political input into the various issues.
Well, I'm just wondering whether it wasn't expected that he would consult the party, like the top 6 or the other 5, even before reshuffling. And if it was expected that he would, but he didn't, then maybe even that committee, it might be there, but maybe he wouldn't consult it.
To my knowledge, Chair, the President is expected to consult the officials. But the way he has been going about it was not to consult, it was to inform them. And hence you saw some revolt with regard to some of the decisions that he was making.
Yeah.
So he was not consulting properly.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier on when you referred to your meeting with Mr. I think Tabeleng.
Grubin, yes.
Yeah, you mentioned that there are certain things that you would rather not say unless Mr. Manyi comes here and says them. I think it remains for me to just check whether those things might fall within the terms of reference. Or you might not be sure.
I doubt.
Okay.
But I think the essence of what he had said was that he had refused to help the NC when I was head of elections. And that's why maybe I did not appoint him.
Oh.
Something along those lines.
Oh, okay.
But he didn't send that to me. He sent it
to somebody
to
else.
Chabeling,
Yeah. Okay. No,
but he showed me the text on the phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you, Chair. I have nothing further at this stage for Mr. Ramatlhodi. There have been 2 letters that we've received from the representative of Dr. Ngubane and Mr. Duduzane Zuma. They haven't applied for cross-examination at this stage. They have reserved their rights. They said they will exercise that right once evidence has been finalized. So at this stage, I will not be in a position to close the evidence of Advocate Ramatlhodi up until such time we have seen their version.
Okay, all right.
That will be all.
Okay. Mr. Ramatlhodi, we are done for now. We probably, or we may ask you to come back. There are parties mentioned in your evidence that may apply for leave to cross-examine you. So, but the legal team would be in touch with you when the time is right. But otherwise, thank you very much for coming forward. Thank you for your evidence. You are excused for now.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you
very much.
We'll take the lunch adjournment now. It's 1:20.